Nathalie Simper, and this is The Limitless Musician, a podcast by Kate Creative. Our team helps modern musicians find modern solutions to building a sustainable music career. Along with my co-host, Dr. Catherine Eminent, we will help you learn what it takes to build a career that enhances your life instead of restricting it by becoming the limitless musician you are meant to be. Hey, Limitless Musicianeer. Originally, this episode was supposed to be all about burnout with me and Catherine. That episode is still happening. It's just going to happen a little later this month. Today's episode is the one that I teased at the end of the last episode on the podcast, the very, very special one, because we have a guest with us on the podcast today. Her name is Kate Kayaian, and as a limitless musician herself, she's had a career as a professional cellist and is also an entrepreneur, career and mindset coach, and has her own podcast called Tales from the Lane. She's going to be sharing all about her new book called Beyond Potential, a guide for creatives who want to reassess, redefine, and reignite their careers. And honestly, it just aligns so perfectly with everything that we've talked about on the podcast so far. So I hope that you will enjoy getting to know Kate and enjoy listening to this special episode. Okay, so the first thing that I do want to ask you before we really get into everything is what is the name of your rescue pup?
Tango.
Oh my goodness, that's such a cute
Yeah.
name.
Yeah. Well, we had Whiskey and now we have Tango, and Foxtrot has just adopted us.
Oh
So,
wow. Oh my goodness. So
yeah.
you have three now?
Well, one was a cat, and the this latest one is some stray cat who just keeps showing up. So
Yeah.
we've named her Foxtrot. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Yeah, we're a big fan of dogs and rescue animals.
Yeah.
I have three rescue dogs,
Oh,
and
amazing.
yeah, one of them is taking a nap behind me. He might make an appearance, but
Well, mine is taking a nap behind me too. So
oh my gosh, so
she's the cutest.
cute.
Yes.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here, Kate, and to pick your brain and really talk all about your exciting new book. And I thought, what better way to introduce it than to just have you share a little bit of your life story so that we can get to know you a little bit better.
Sure, sure. And I'll keep it brief because, nobody really needs all the gory details.
Yeah.
But I started out as a cellist. I had a very kind of standard to a lot of, your musician listeners of started when I was 5 and did Suzuki and was pretty good. So I went to the New England Conservatory of Music, and then I was lucky enough to get a spot into the New World Symphony. So just sort of like doing the thing. And I was very lucky. I had incredible opportunities, and I loved it. I realized when I was at New World Symphony that I did not want an orchestra job. I had a lot of clarity around that. And so I moved back to Boston. I didn't take any auditions, and I moved back to Boston where I had a lot of friends and contacts and just did the freelance scene. Did a lot of contemporary music, played with Boston Modern Orchestra Project, um, did a lot of chamber music and stuff. And again, really loved it. I was teaching, I was running chamber music festivals. I was getting to the point where I was working 7 days a week, most hours of every day.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved what I was doing, I was exhausted. And I had this pivoting moment of like, I don't want to keep doing this. I felt like there was more that I wanted, something else that I wanted to be doing. And so I started doing more solo work. Around the same time, I met my now husband who lived in Bermuda. So I ended up moving from Boston to Bermuda, had a lot of time on my hands, and was just practicing. And it was so nice just to have time to really sink into what I wanted to do and how I wanted to spend my time. And not be in a scene where it's like you're just squeezing in every tiny little gig like it's a puzzle piece,
Right.
trying to max out every hour. It's when I started my blog, which was the first version of my now podcast, Tales from the Lane. And I was just running around, flying around, playing concerts. And then the pandemic hit. And what most people don't know was that from around 2018 until 2020, I was wondering whether I wanted to continue performing as a cellist. And the few people that I talked to about that, they were like, well, you can't quit. Like, that's just not an option. You cannot. You have this amazing career. Like, you can't just stop playing. That's not allowed. It's
Mhm.
not how this industry works. And I really struggled with that. And I was looking for resources. I was looking for examples of musicians who just stopped, who didn't stop because they weren't good enough, who didn't stop because they were injured, who didn't stop because they had some horrible thing happen to them. They just stopped to do something different.
Right.
So that was sort of on my mind in the background. When the pandemic hit, I had been teaching online because of my traveling, so I continued with that. I started the first online full-length music festival, which was the virtual Summer Cello Festival, which a lot of people thought I was nuts to try to do something like that. And then once they saw that it was successful, everybody was calling me and asking me to help them create similar things.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how my coaching career started. It started just as like helping my musician colleagues create online programs to get them through the pandemic when all of their work had been canceled. And I realized very quickly that in coaching people, yeah, you can tell them exactly what they need to do, step by step by step, but often it's the mental side that gets in their way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they know to send this email. They know the person. They have their email address. They have the email written, and yet somehow they can't get themselves to do it. And so I really dove into coaching skills and studying coaching, and I learned so much and found that I was really better able to help everybody to get past those issues like imposter syndrome and just the negative self-talk and all of that. So that's what I've been doing. I've been coaching and speaking, and then I decided to put it all together and write the book that in that period of 2017, I really desperately wished that I had been able to read. And I also wish that that book had been around when I was a conservatory student and sort of creating my career. Um, as I said, I loved what I was doing, but I think it would have been a really helpful resource to set myself out and make fewer mistakes along the way.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel like you've given us a highlight reel of the ups and downs and just like also like your thought process, which I think is really amazing because as you said, like the mental side of things is really the most important aspect of building a career and also making decisions to change that career from maybe like what you
Hmm.
initially thought it was going to be. And that's the thing that is missing from conversations about careers for musicians. Like you mentioned before, nobody talks about just deciding not to perform and to do something different or to maybe perform less and incorporate other passions and skills into their career. So the fact that you see that there's a gap there's a necessity for that, and I love it. Like when I was reading through Beyond Potential, I just kept thinking the same thing, that wow, where was this when I was in school, or where was this when I was struggling and deciding whether I even wanted to be a classical musician. So I think it's wonderful that you've been able to take your experience and share that, because musicians don't often we're not often the recipients of just kind-hearted generosity and sharing, right? We're always just like thinking that there's another reason or ulterior motive, or it somehow has to serve a greater purpose, which is often connected to performing, which is
Right.
not the
Yeah,
case 100% of the
totally.
time anymore.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. That's so sweet. You know, Yes, and what I want to clarify is that this is really in a bigger picture. It's about identifying the things in our life that we think we are supposed to do or not allowed to do. So this could be you are on track, you really want an orchestra job, and you are preparing for auditions, and you want to grab that seat in a great orchestra. But you're also thinking, like, well, but I really love teaching. And you're like, well, I'm not supposed to focus on teaching. I'm supposed to focus on auditions. And so this book isn't about how to stop performing if you don't want to be a performer, right? That was my example of battling against what am I allowed or not allowed to do with my career. And it could be anything. It could be, I have this amazing idea to run a festival or to start a concert series. But, I mean, I'm only 24. I'm not really established in the city. Who am I to start something like this? It's like, well, you're the person who has the great idea.
Mhm.
So this book, it's in three parts, and the first part is the reassess part, right? It's looking at how you got to this point and all of the stories that have been told to you, all the stories that you're telling yourself about what you're allowed and not allowed to do, and just sort of taking stock of like, okay, here I am, and this is what's working. This is what is not so great, and this is why I am finding myself stuck.
Mhm.
I really just doing that because I think some people start with like, oh, I want to do this thing, right? That's the second part, redefining what is it that you want to do. And they start there without really figuring out what were the blocks and obstacles that were keeping them stuck before. Because if you don't identify them and deal with them, you're not going to be able to move forward.
Right,
Right?
exactly.
You're not going to be able to. And so we have that second step of like figuring out what you do want to do, free of these limitations and obstacles. And then the third part is like nuts and bolts. This is Kate, the coach, being like, this is how you schedule time management. This is how you get it done. These are my favorite methods. And a gentle, loving kick in the butt to help you make these things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, musicians' careers can look like all kinds of things and can have lots of different components, including, performing and incorporating a lots of other different parts in the career as well.
Mhm.
And I love that you talk about the different steps. That the second step is usually, it comes pretty naturally, where you have an idea of I want to do this, or I want to do that, and the follow through, or the knowing how to do that, is a thing that often gets you stuck.
Yeah.
And it's so important. Something I always say, that it's just as important to know your weaknesses or to know your challenges just as well as you do your strengths. And that takes a
Hmm.
lot of introspection, which I find is difficult for a lot of people, because even though, we live in our own bodies, it's difficult to just spend time with yourself in that mental space and really understanding why do I process things this way? Why do I feel a certain way about that, or about this? And so I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more in detail about the storytelling aspect of that reassessing that you talk about in the first part of your book.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I talk about it in basically three parts of like the stories that we inherited,
Mhm.
right? Growing up in a family, you're little and your parents teach you how to do everything, right? They teach you how to eat, how to walk, how to dress, what to say, what to do. And so we just accept everything they tell us. And sometimes as adults, things come out of our mouths and we don't really mean them, or maybe we do mean them. Um, but as a child, we inherit those things. So that could be um, opinions about money, either way, right? If your general belief of your family is that like rich people are bad or poor people are bad, or like whatever it is, like we inherit these stories. And then of course, there are the stories that society is telling us,
Mhm.
right? Like, no, no, no. Classical musicians can't just quit. And oh, if you're the best, you'll be a soloist. And if you're the next best, you'll be a chamber musician. And then you'll be principal of an orchestra. And then moving down, right? Until, there's this hierarchy, which is just crap, right? Because everybody wants to do something different and unique,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Could I have won a job in an orchestra? I mean, I don't know. I didn't take auditions. People told me that I could. And that's again goes into the title of Beyond Potential, of like people outside of us will tell us stories about what our potential is.
Right.
Kate, wow. She's a great cellist. She really has the potential to be, a principal cellist of a major orchestra. And then that becomes like this burden on me. Somebody has decided that I have the potential to do that. And we're, as society tells us, we're supposed to fulfill our potential. We're supposed to go reach it. But it's not our own. So the book urges you to look at those stories that people have put on you, that society has put on you, and that you've created for yourself.
Right.
And that can be in terms of identity, of like, well, I'm a musician. I've been doing this my whole life, therefore I can't do anything else, right? That's a story that we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves a story of I can't go away, on a trip with my friends for a week. I have to practice every day. Like that's a story we tell ourselves. Like, trust me, you'll be fine if you take a week off of practicing. You might
Right.
even come back better. Like a little known fact. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so just really going beyond those
Hmm.
those external and self-inflicted sometimes definitions of your potential and figuring it out again for yourself.
Hmm. And what I love about this is that it's reframing how we perceive these expectations that have been placed on us by
Mhm.
society, by the classical music industry, especially those, if you want to be a successful musician, then you're going to take all the orchestra auditions, you're going to try to be the best of the best and be an international soloist or with the best orchestras across the country. And understanding that rather than these are set expectations that can't be changed and just are, that
Mhm.
these are stories that can be interpreted differently so that we can understand better how it influences our decisions and our what drives us in creating and building a career that feels sustainable and fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Because I have, listen, I have no resentment or anger towards anybody who saw any kind of potential in me. It's
Mhm.
so generous of them to see such potential. So it's not a like, oh, who are you to tell me what to do? It just happens, right?
Right.
It just happens. I was a teacher for a really long time. And I would, out of a place of loving generosity, tell my students wonderful things that I thought they wanted to hear, like, oh, I know you're gonna get into this festival and you're gonna be great. And um, I certainly didn't say it in a matter of putting pressure on them or defining them in any kind of way. So these things just happen, but it's up to us as adults now to identify those stories and then decide for ourselves what we want to do with them.
Hmm.
And I have the book is like, it has tons of exercise in it. It's really an excavation of your own brain and your own self. And it is very introspective of writing out for yourself what those stories are and reframing them for yourself and questioning them.
Hmm.
Um, all of the things that I found myself doing.
Right. And I love that part, that aspect of your book is that the exercises, the step by step, like the journaling and just being able to write everything out and see like just put your thoughts onto paper and kind of see it exist in the world.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm the kind of person that, everything has to live up here and I have to keep track of it or else. And that's a story I tell myself that if I don't keep
Hmm.
it here and if I don't function by being able to remember everything, then I'm flawed in some way or I'm not doing my best. So to be able to have it right in front of you and to see it and really understand what that means is just incredible because your brain doesn't just process something and then that's the end of it. We read it, we do other things, we come back to it, and over time our brain starts putting other pieces together. So to be able to have that living all in one place in your book, I think is brilliant, so that people can start in one place with their thoughts and then be able to kind of flesh them out and see them blossom and see how they can apply that in their everyday life.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And I love that you use the word blossom
Mm-hmm.
because the cover of the book is a lotus flower opening. And that is really just representative of that's what I want this book to do for you. I want it to help you open up into your true self. And when you finish reading this book, actually, by the time you're about halfway through, you're going to be so excited
Yeah.
about what you want to start doing and your ability to become that version of yourself, to start doing those things. And for one person, that might be a complete life and career pivot,
Mm-hmm.
right? This book might help you decide that, you know what? Yeah, you've been in music since you were 7, but really you passionately want to try to do something else. Or yeah, maybe you've been in music since you were a kid and you love it and you want to add this other thing to it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it goes into other aspects of your life too. It goes into your hobbies and how you spend your non-career time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I mean, I know most musicians, at least when I was in college, free time was just a concept. It was
yeah.
not a reality, right? So to
Mhm.
be able to think not only in the trajectory of your career, of how your career can adapt and grow as you are growing as a person, but also understanding and being able to prioritize what really matters in life, because without yourself, without your well-being and understanding how you exist in the world, then your career, it's not going to exist without you, right? And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I love the part 2 of Beyond Potential, where you talk about getting closer to a version of your ideal self, that self that has those priorities and understands you know how you fit in the world, how you can contribute to the world on an emotional, intellectual, on a physical level. So, can you talk a little bit more about that? We've talked a lot about the potential self and
Mhm.
what how that potential is kind of measured for us or placed upon us. But can you talk a little bit more about that ideal self and how you can transition from thinking about the potential to what truly is your ideal self?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the heart of the book, and I think the thing that made me start writing it was listening to this podcast episode where somebody just, I mean, it wasn't even what the episode was about, but one of the piece of people just said kind of offhandedly, yeah, it's like that story about like you go to heaven and instead of meeting St. Peter, you meet the version of yourself that did everything that you always wanted to do. And Natalie, it stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. The idea of coming face to face with the version of me, like imagine just like standing in front of a mirror and the person standing in front of you in that mirror reflection is the person who did all of the things that you always wanted to do. The things that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna run a marathon someday. And they're like wearing their marathon ribbon, right?
Yeah.
Their medal. They're like, if you're like, yeah, I want to speak fluent Italian. And they're like yakking away in Italian. They did all of these things, and it could be career-wise, it could be life-wise, right? Really, part 2 is about defining what those things are.
Mhm.
What are the things that you secretly have always wanted to do? Like the fact that my tooth is crooked has bothered me forever. And I imagine like all I need to do is just get Invisalign, right? It's like I know what to do. And the idea of looking at a version of myself in the mirror with perfectly straight teeth because like she actually made the phone call and got the Invisalign. That's what kicks me in the butt and says like just make that phone call.
Yeah.
Like you could look like that. Um, and so it's those little things of defining like what are the things that really matter to you? And they could be as insignificant as a crooked tooth and as huge as like what career they had or like having kids, not having kids, living in the country or living in the city, like what is it about that person that calls to you, like from deep down inside you, without those stories getting in the way?
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's incredible. And like you're so right. There are so many things, and it doesn't matter how big or small, how significant or insignificant. But thinking about all the things in my own life where I'm like, oh, all I have to do is like make that phone call, or I just have to do this
Hmm.
one thing and then I'll have it. But I just wait and wait for the right time, which there's
Hmm.
never the right time to do anything really. And I think, as musicians, we're conditioned to be perfectionists and to do everything, correct and 100% accurate. And so when you're talking about like meeting your ideal self, that person who did everything that you ever wanted to, right? The difference is that one person is waiting and then the other person is doing, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that your book outlines that, that step-by-step process to start the doing part of doing all those things that you've always wanted to do, whether it's in your career or your personal life, your hobbies, your family, and all of that stuff. I think is incredible.
Oh, yeah, and I love that you brought up the whole perfectionist aspect too, because one thing that I noticed that my clients who I've taken through this exercise, the one thing that nobody's ideal version is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? The ideal version that I see is still messy. She's still dyslexic. She still mixes up her words and scribbles things out because she wrote them backwards. Like she's still messy. She's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
She's just done the things that I want to do. That's
Yeah.
the only difference, right? So, taking off that burden of being perfect and just focusing on doing the things that bring you enjoyment and fulfillment.
Yes, and the doing part it's great because a lot of things that we learn as humans come from doing things and either
Hmm.
succeeding and understanding how what we did in order to succeed, or by doing the things and then making a mistake or not getting our intended result, and then analyzing, okay, what went right, what went wrong, and then how do I get how do I move forward from here. So I
Yeah.
love that you've clarified that ideal person, that version of yourself who's done everything, doesn't mean that they're perfect. It doesn't mean that they succeeded every single time they set out to do something, but they set out to do it and then they did it. No matter what that path looks like, with successes and with failures, or detours and time. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. What is it? What's the saying? You either you win or you learn.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I know as a musician, I thought, I thought that making mistakes was failing, right? You play a wrong note and then they're like, well, you might as well have, you can't use that recording anymore, right? Because
Hmm.
you've got that one wrong note. And then so you do like 100 takes just to try to get the perfect run through. And so I think that's really important to note that in your mistakes you can still learn. Just because you didn't get your intended result, just because you don't hit that goal, doesn't mean that you haven't learned how to do it differently to get closer to that goal.
Well, exactly. And that is one thing that I absolutely loved about being a musician was that we were in constant pursuit of this unattainable goal, right? Because nothing is ever perfect.
Hmm.
Nothing's like nobody reaches perfection. And I remember having a conversation with Peter Serkin, the incredible pianist, and he was playing the Brahms Second Piano Concerto with Boston Symphony, which, like, I mean, that was his piece, right?
Yeah.
And it was always so beautiful and so moving, and in my mind, absolute perfection. And I saw him afterwards. Oh, Kate, he's like, do you think I'll ever be able to play it right? Just can't ever get it to do what I want it to do. It never sounds in reality the way it sounds in my head. So even he, at the height of his career, everybody bowing down to his Brahms Second Piano Concerto was saying like, ah, it's not quite there yet. But I love that. I mean, okay, it can torture us a little bit too, but I loved that we could dedicate our time to the pursuit
Hmm.
of it. And I think as long as we consciously know that we cannot achieve it,
Right.
it's just it brings out the creativity, the curiosity. What could I try that could get it closer? What if I tried this? What if I played it this way, right? And it's that pursuit of it that is that's what's special. And that resonates and translates to every aspect of your life
Hmm.
of always trying to do something in a better way and bringing your creativity and bringing your sense of curiosity to it without allowing it to overwhelm you and be a burden on you, right? As long as it
Right.
doesn't, as you said, become a sense of failure if you don't attain it because it's unattainable by
Right.
anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a balance. Like, of course, I think of people who who are like, well, perfectionism is just a part of being a classical musician. Like you have a certain level of expectations and standards that you have to meet, and I think that often the opposite of perfectionism is seen as like, oh, like we're all just hunky dory, like we're just play whatever we want, however we want, and there's no structure, there are no expectations, right? But there does have to be a balance of like, yes, we can strive to be the best, we can strive to be our best, understanding that we're not going to be perfect
Mhm.
100% of the time. That's not it's not a realistic goal to strive to be perfect 100% of the time. But if we can get a little close to it, then it feels amazing,
Yeah.
because you have something that you've created, something that connects you to other people, whether it's performing, teaching, or however you exist in your career. And something that one of the quotes that I loved, like when I read this in your book, I had to stop and I had to read it again, and then I had to read it again because it just resonated so much with me. But you talk about in that part too, about being your potential self is less about fixing anything and more about aligning your actions, choices, and beliefs with the person you've always known you could be, which I think
Yes.
is brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're not broken.
Yeah.
That much I can promise you. Nobody's broken. Um, but yeah, if you feel like the ideal version of yourself, the person who, like, deep down, that's who you are, they are fit and healthy, and you haven't gotten more than 200 steps in a day the last month, like, well, that you're not in alignment with that person, right?
Right.
So it's not that you're broken, you're just not in alignment. So you can, once you identify those things, once you redefine who it is you want to, who it is you are,
Mhm.
and where you want to be headed, that's it. It's easy to see. The steps become obvious of what to do next, of how to align that.
Right. And that's the mental component that you were talking about with your clients about, like, you can just tell them what to do, but it's that
Mhm.
mental aspect of being able to see, understand how that aligns with your goals for yourself and the kind of person that you want to be and know that you can be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's that mental aspect that you're talking about, because often we have like, oh, imposter syndrome. I'm like, oh, what's the point? Why bother? You'll never do that, right?
Mhm.
The negative self-talk. Who are you to think that you could do something like that? And then there's also just like, I talk a lot about the people that you surround yourself with. Like, if you want to, you know, as a musician, sometimes we're around other like go-getters,
Mhm.
and everybody's getting up early and practicing and like going for their goals, and sometimes, we're hanging out with people who don't have to practice as much or don't practice as much, and they're hanging out and going out all the time, and we know we need to do the work, and we're kind of swayed away from that.
Mhm.
Right. So part of it is surrounding yourself with the people who are going to help you stay motivated and inspired to do the things that you know you want to do. Right?
Mhm.
If you want to practice more, surround yourself with people who are practicing all the time. You want to read more, surround yourself with friends who have a book club, right? If you want to run more, join a running club. If you like whatever it is, um, be around people who support that and also have that as part of their lifestyle. And part of it is a lack of habit, right? Some people don't need other people around them in the same way, right? Like, I mean, I started running this year and I run to be by myself, honestly. So I'm probably not going to join a running club. I might someday, but like right now, that's not but I needed to build the habit of running. So for some people, they just need help with the habit building, which is also addressed in the book. And for some people, it's time management. They keep telling me. Um, in fact, I was so surprised. I sent out a survey to my clients and people who had booked calls with me, and like basically people who I knew were interested in coaching. And I said, like, what's the number one obstacle? And I expected them to say, like, well, I don't have clarity around what I want to do yet, or I don't know how to do it, or time management. Everybody has trouble with time management. I couldn't believe it. Um, and so you can know who you want to be, you can know what steps you want to take, you can be surrounded by the right people and totally supported, and still feel like you don't have enough time. And it's probably because you're not managing your time in the right way.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I feel
so
like,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it.
yeah, definitely. I feel like time management is one of those things that, like, it's like an ongoing, a life pursuit of trying to balance it. And I think part of it is that, your life doesn't stay the same. You have different chapters of your life. Maybe
Hmm.
your personal relationships shift. Maybe there's a global pandemic, right? And you're
Hmm.
having to deal with that, and all the other things that come and go in your life. And so being able to manage your time and set your
Hmm.
priorities, it's so difficult when it feels like, all right, even if you finally feel like you have a balance, then something else comes into the mix and you're like, okay, well, I've got to figure out how to do this all over again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Parenthood is a big one.
Mhm.
It's a big change. It takes tons of time to raise children, right? I
Right.
mean, that goes without saying. And so a lot of people are like, I just don't have time. But when they look at it, they are spending a lot of time doing other things
Mhm.
that don't revolve around raising their kids. So just, keeping an eye on your priorities, right? And really making sure that your actions are, again, coming back to it, aligned with what those are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I love that you've talked about, not only understanding your ideal self, the version of yourself that is doing all the things that you want to do, and putting those things in motion. Also surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded or who can support you. You know, there's that saying that you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that segues really well into part 3 of your book about like actually setting actionable steps and being able to start organizing your time, your goals, your resources to be able to move everything forward. So something I really enjoyed reading about was your idea of having a personal mission statement, which it
Yeah.
seems so like once you start reading about it, it seems so simple. It's like, well, why didn't I think of it that way? So can you talk a little bit more about your personal mission statements and how that helps find like kind of outline that path to
Mm-hmm.
align yourself with your goals and your ideal self?
Yeah, this exercise came about from working with a lot of multi-hyphenate creatives, right? So they are the cellist who is also a teacher, who also runs a festival, who also does this. And so when I would have them, come up with like, well, tell me what you do. And they would say, in terms of which job? And I would say, no, just in terms of you, right? So identifying you take all of the different things that you do and figure out what is the core component of each of those that is you, right? So as a cellist, I wanted to communicate with other people to help them experience the music in a different and a better way. As a coach, I wanted to help people to um, live their life in a better and, more aligned way, right? So all of these things, the way I worked with my cello students, the way I worked with my clients, the way I wrote books, the way I performed, it all had to do with the same thing, right? So clarifying that, and that becomes who you are and what you're about, no matter what job you're doing,
Right.
which is great. And then the idea of like, so what? Right? What is it about the world that you want to have an effect on? Why are you doing that kind of work? Right? So that this, and then talk about how you want to, things that you want to do in the future with an aim to do this. Right? So, um, yeah, the mission statement, if you look at any corporate website and they have their mission statement, and it's all about like, this is what we do. This is why we do it. And we hope that it will have this effect on whatever, the bottom line, the world, our community. And if we can put that kind of statement together for ourselves, what is it you do? Why do you do it? And to what end?
Mhm.
I think you'll have a lot of clarity around how you want to move through this world, and you'll feel a lot more clarity and cohesion in your own life. As musicians, most of us are doing multiple different things.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
to feel like you don't have 5 hats, you just have one, and you're just going into different rooms.
Yeah, I think that's so important to remember that at the at when you whittle down all of these jobs and all of these career paths that you have, that it kind of seem like they're running parallel, that at the
Hmm.
core they're all centered on you
Hmm.
as an individual, what's important to you, your core values, your beliefs, and how you put that out into the world. And for Kate Creative, with our coaching clients, we call it your why. This is
Hmm.
your why, and it's the same thing of being able to understand why it is that you do things and how you put that out into the world and what your intended result is. So I think that's wonderful. And your outline of how to put together those core values and
Yeah.
start putting together your own mission statement. It's so straightforward and just easy to follow, and it makes you feel like you're a rocket scientist, even though it's so like just simple and straightforward. So I love that you make it like seem so easy to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that those templates were helpful. My aim was to do with this book of just to have the reader come away with tangible things, right? To be able to say, like, oh, it's one thing to read, oh, you should write a mission statement, and these are the things that go into it. And I do that, and then I say, okay, here's a template, fill it in, right? Like, write it now, do it,
Yes.
right? Like, before you turn the page, you will have a functional mission statement that helps guide you towards the next thing. So I love and yeah, I mean, it's we have an opportunity to make ourselves feel whole and instead of just like parts of ourselves going out
Mhm.
throughout each day. It can just be us showing up fully.
Yes, and I think that's a wonderful place to start wrapping up a little bit. And as you said, it's just at the center of everything is you as a person, as what you value, what you believe. And I love the way that you outline the process of being able to reassess and redefine what your career can mean so that it aligns more with who you are as an individual. So, with that, I want to do a quick lightning round of questions,
Sure.
like just
I love a lightning round.
yes, yes, like short little bursts of nuggets of knowledge from you. So, what is one resource you didn't have but you wish you had 10 years ago?
My book.
Yes.
Next question.
Yeah, we literally talked about that before. Yes,
My
same.
book. Beyond Potential, a guide for creatives who want to reassess, redefine, and reignite their careers.
What is one piece of advice that has stuck with you throughout your career?
The best piece of advice was from an older colleague slash very dear friend who, when I was starting out in my freelance life in Boston, said, say yes to everything at first, and then whittle away as you get more information.
Mhm. I love that.
So, say you are offered three teaching jobs, say yes to all three, and then keep the ones that have the best students, the best commute, pay the best,
Mhm.
but say yes to everything
Mhm. Excellent.
at first.
Yes, at first.
At first.
What is your favorite organization or time management hack that you've been using these days?
Oh, Pomodoro technique for
Mhm.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Anytime I have, oh, sorry, that's a lightning round. You don't want to know the why. Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes on, 5-minute break.
Awesome.
Every time.
Awesome. And then let's see, what's a book or podcast that you would recommend to everyone? Of course, Beyond Potential being one. And then
Hmm.
anything that you've listened to recently, or you think that everybody should listen to at some point.
Well, my podcast, Tales from the Lane, of course,
Mhm.
but beyond that, I really love Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Okay.
The Tim Ferriss show. I always, at first, sorry, Tim, but I felt like he was a bit of a bro. But he actually has really interesting guests. They're not musicians. It's a totally different perspective, but really brilliant people and interesting ideas just flying around.
Excellent. And then one mindset shift that people can make today to
Mhm.
improve their life, even just a little bit.
Okay, well, this is a big one in the book, so you have to read the book to get into it. But when you find yourself saying that you can't do something because of this, because no, because I don't have money, no, because I don't have time, switch it around to a yes, if. Yes, if I had X number of dollars. Yes, if I had this amount of time in my week. And ask yourself what it would take to make this a possibility for you, and then go from there.
Excellent. Well, I guess we're just going to have to read your book in order to figure out the rest of that.
Absolutely. I hope you do. I hope you
Yes.
do. I mean, I know you did, Nathalie.
Yeah.
Thank you. But like
I
the
know.
listeners of the world.
Yes, I absolutely ate it up. It is so brilliant. And especially, one of the things that we talk about on this podcast is about, breaking down those mental barriers to be able to adapt and adjust your career to enhance your lifestyle instead of restrict it. And I think your book, Beyond Potential, really just explains that wholeheartedly and gives a lot of great, like, step-by-step methods to be able to start chipping away and setting up new habits that will, just become routine. And then, they can look back and say, oh my goodness, like, things are so much different now. And you can feel so much more aligned with your personal goals and your career goals.
Yes.
So let's see. Where can our listeners find you online, Kate?
Well, you can always head to my website, which is katekayaian.com. That'll be in the show notes because it's got a lot of A's and I's in it. and then you can find me on Instagram at @kkaian. And I hang out there a lot. I love chatting in the DM. So say hello, tell me you heard me on the podcast, and tell me what you're up to.
Awesome. Yes, we'll include all of those links in the show notes. And Beyond Potential is available for pre-order right now on Barnes & Noble and bookshop.org. And it's going to be officially available on March 25th. So you still have a little bit of time to pre-order. And if you pre-order, you can visit Kate's website to register for a special live bonus session with Kate on March 29th to get all of your questions answered and to learn about Kate's personal goal setting process. So that's definitely something that you don't want to miss out on. So
I'm so excited. It's going to be so fun. I'm making it well worth your while to pre-order this book. So get in there and get it.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know I have just really enjoyed being able to listen to you, to learn from you. And like, I feel super motivated and just like invigorated to do things and to move some things forward. So I hope that our listeners will too.
I hope so. And thank you so much, Nathalie. It was so great to talk to you today, and appreciate the time.
All right. That's all for today's episode on The Limitless Musician. If you liked this episode, follow us on Instagram at The Limitless Musician to tell us what you want to hear next. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive content that won't show up anywhere else by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time.